What's up, guys? Ian here, coach of your Ladner Lantern, resizing the UTL logo here. Bringing you guys our UTL Season 11 recap, as well as just a summary of how playoffs went, and I'll take you guys through the replays. So, this is my first season in UTL, despite there being 11 seasons. There's a lot of people that I knew prior to the league. That participate in this league. So there was myself here. I did finish first in the regular season, 10 and 2 plus 31. Nasiliga, who has notoriously beaten me pretty much every time we've matched up, actually. I knew Brian from a few other things. Derp is a good pal of mine as well. Same with Obi. Hat as well, good pal. Same with West. Brain, I knew Benny just from speaking to him about UTL. And then also Sock, it's Sock. Uh, Matt, I knew a little bit. Nacho, you guys will have seen many, many times on my channel. And Clasped, who I know very well as well. So it's a league of a bunch of friends. It's a very, very long-standing league. They like to just start over and over and over again. So there haven't really been many breaks, to my knowledge. But this was the final Gen 7 season, and like I mentioned many, many times in the probably in the Hive videos, I was taking on 11 leagues to just sort of pick up as many championships as I could, as many playoff finishes, just get as much practice in as I could, and improve the most that I possibly could at the end of the cycle of the generation. So I took on UTL. It was the last league that I took on. I believe we finished drafting on like August 25th or something. Actually, let me look up the exact date here. So timeline. Yeah, August 25th, or that might have been the day we started drafting. And today is currently December 17th, and it was the day of finals today. So, I mean, this was a really, really long season. It was a 12-week season, and then there was playoffs, and I want to say there was a bye week somewhere. But it's because the way the league treats weeks is that 1 week equals 2, so you have 2 weeks to play your week 1 match, and then once week 2 is over, basically, is when it can be called an F. Like once week 3 starts is when it can be called an FF kind of thing. So we did have a couple people who just basically didn't play any games down here at the bottom. I did get FF wins for both of them. It probably would have changed anything. Wouldn't have changed anything. I probably would have won those games anyways. But it did affect my standings in terms of me just getting like two wins and 6 differential for completely free. The 2 wins probably didn't end up changing anything in the grand scheme of things, because like I said, I probably would have won both of these games regardless. But the 6 differential also didn't matter either, so that's pretty much all there is to it. I didn't make any transactions. The transaction deadline was week 6, and I just didn't make any. So I have Zera Aura, Megalakazam, Melodic, Garchomp, Skarmory, Mimikyu, Kecleon, Lurantis, Venomoth, Espeon, Passimian, and Houndoom. In this league, it is 12 mon drafts, and you're forced to take 2 tier 3s and 2 tier 4s, I believe. I'm pretty sure it was 2 tier 4s. Or it could have been 2 tier 4s and 2 tier 5s. I can't exactly remember off the top of my head anymore. But I ended up with 3 tier 5s because I dumped a bunch of stuff into my free points, and Mega Alakazam was like right up there in terms of the free points, right? So this is the pick order that I did take them in. I was near the back, and I managed to get Zera Aura, Mega Alakazam. Yeah, so the way that the pick order works is like the champion gets to pick where they want in the order and stuff like that, and then it goes down based on playoff placement, and I was like one of the last because I was brand new to the league, so I got one of the lower picks. I think it was in the middle of the draft, though. I can't exactly remember. But this is my first time ever drafting Zera Aura, which I was super excited about because I'd never had an opportunity, and this is the last league I was doing in Gen 7. I really wanted to draft Zera Aura. And then I basically drafted a bunch of comfort, besides a few things I'd never used before and a few things I wasn't comfortable with. But obviously Mimikyu is something I'm very comfortable with. Same with Melodic and Garchomp. Mega Alakazam I've gotten a lot better with. And then there were a lot of things that were new in the lower values that I just wanted to try out, that I thought maybe might fill out the team a little bit more. But overall, it was a super solid roster. I was very happy with the roster. And so obviously I made quarterfinals. And in quarterfinals, I was up against West. I was really scared about this match because I had cheesed him in our first game. He had Mega Gallade, and I brought like this really cheesy Mega Gallade Celesteela, right? And I brought this really cheesy Mimikyu set, which had Will-O-Wisp and like light or reflect or something like that. And it was just like a Mimikyu set designed to like burn the Celesteela and like be the Mega Gallade answer, which was super strange. But essentially, I cheesed that one, and he didn't even bring Mega Gallade that time or in playoffs. So I was really scared though because it was a match that I had cheesed. I steamrolled Hat in the regular season because my team just had a really good matchup, and then I cheesed Obi in the regular season. I didn't play Derp. I lost to Brian in a really close match that I made a misprediction on. I definitely could have won that one. I beat Andy in a meme match because we figured we might play in playoffs. We were the 1 and 2 seeds at the time, and this was like the final week of the season or something, or the second last week. And Nasiliga beat me in week 1 in a very close match as well. So I wasn't super confident coming into playoffs because most of the people that I had like manhandled throughout the season were not in playoffs. That's pretty much all there was to it there. So I didn't get a chance to take on pretty much anyone that I had comfortably beaten, and these were all pretty difficult matches. But first up, we took on West, and this was the first day where Discord was out 2 weeks ago or something, and it was super obnoxious. We had to schedule over like Snapchat in the UTL Snapchat group, but I ended up bringing like Banded Zeraora. I wasn't super scared of the Palisand, so I brought Band. I believe I was relatively specially offensive Megalakazam with like Charge Beam Psyshock, and I think that was all I was running, was just to like Charge Beam on stuff and then Psyshock through Florges. And he had an Umbreon that he didn't bring, and I was really scared of the Umbreon for my Megazam, but I figured Mimikyu could break it. I am Z Mimikyu because I think Mimikyu actually has a really good matchup, and especially in this one, if the Celesteela is chipped and I have some damage on the Rotom, the Victini, the Palisand, and the Roserade, and the Florges, then at +2 Mimikyu just wins with Swords Dance. Garchomp, I can't remember. I think it was like a defensive Chomp with Rocky Helmet to take on Victini. He brought an interesting Victini set last time. I believe it was Scarf Victini last time, and I was trying to counter like a physical Scarf Victini with my Garchomp. I was a physically defensive Milotic as well to take on Victini and to be able to take on a physical Celesteela, but it doesn't offer me that much in this match with a Roserade and a Rotom Frost. And then I am a funky Leftovers Spadef Kecleon, which was designed to take on the Roserade and any variant of Special Victini. So I'm just going to lead with my Garchomp. Rocks are really valuable to me in this matchup, and nothing really poses a threat to Garchomp right off the bat. If the Celesteela wanted to come in, I could click like Fire Blast or something. So I just go for the Toxic turn one, sorry, because I need Chip on the Palisand from Mimikyu, and it lets us get out like Heal Bell on the Florges as well. So we essentially just trade rocks for him getting in the Celesteela. Luckily for me on an Autotomize, but also not luckily for me because this is a very offensive Celesteela. There are a few things going through my mind here. I was like, oh shit, if he's Wakanberry, maybe I don't kill. And then I calced it. If he's offensive with Wakanberry, I still killed because I was Choice Band. But since he has the Autotomize up, I figured he was willing to sort of like attack me and see if he could kill me. The main thing I was worried about was Tectonic Rage. Jolly Celesteela, Tectonic Rage couldn't kill me with my investment or something, but Adamant could. So he ended up... Anyways, he doesn't click Tectonic Rage, he clicks Earthquake, and we get the Bandit Plasma Fist off, and we just delete the Celesteela. So that was one of the things standing in Mimikyu's way. It was his best defensive check for the Mimikyu. Obviously, the Palisand comes in pretty much for free, as I get to go into Kecleon, though, and it basically just does nothing to my Kecleon, and I can just sort of stall this Palisand with Recovers. It's not really doing anything to me at all, and Kecleon's actually a giant problem for him. I am running Mono Return, so I can't, like, touch this Palisand, but I'm slowly whittling the Palisand down with Toxic, and he's got to go into something. So I decided to go for the return now, figuring it was a no drawback play, and we actually caught the Florges, which turned out to be like Life Orb offensive, and then I got a Toxic off on it, which was pretty big, because based on the Life Orb damage, I'm kind of figuring this doesn't have Heal Bell for the Palisand, so Toxic is really putting in its work right now. The return play, I figured, you know, I was at full health anyways. There was no point in clicking Recover that turn, and if he did switch, then return was a fine play. Otherwise, I'm just returning into Palisand. It really doesn't matter. It's the same as clicking Recover, except I'm not wasting Recovers. That's why I made that play. But Yeah, so the Florges is in now. It's got Psychic to hit me as a poison type, which I thought was pretty funny. I'm not entirely sure what that was for, actually, but potentially Venomoth. I do have a Venomoth on my team, and it could have been for the Venomoth, but this Florges is in a really bad spot, actually. I'm just kind of toxic stalling it down with Recover and putting it in a position where it can't take a return here. And I'm just continuously recovering now. That one should have been a return. I don't know why I didn't. This one is a return, and we're going to see it does over half to the Rosary. You know, I'm fully Spadef, so return is just a really strong move, and Kecleon actually turns out to be really good. But the Rosary is just sitting there lead seating me, getting up a layer of spikes. That was kind of one of the weaknesses of my team, especially when I wasn't bringing Skarmory a lot, because I figured Skarmory was actually... Skarmory is a mon that's really easily taken care of. I decided to go Zam here. And then I'm not going to Mega Evolve because he's got hazards up, so I'm just going to click Psyshock, which does a lot to the Fizzed up Palisand, and we're going to be able to two-shot it. I just want to pause for a sec here. Skarmory is really easily taken advantage of, and my team could cover it very well because I had an Electric Immunity in the Zero Aura and the Garchomp, and then I had like Fire Resist in Garchomp Melodic to cover Skarmory's weaknesses, but I really just think that it's pure setup fodder. I wasn't even a fan. I barely brought Skarmory this season. It came to 4 games. Didn't come to any of my playoff matches. Yeah, it was super weird. But anyway, I'm not a big Skarmory fan. And I wasn't again on this team. Excuse me. Anyways, we get rid of the Palisand here. So the defensive core is gone. It's offensive Florges. I need to figure out what this Victini is. So I'm going to go into Garchomp to scout Scarf, because there's really no reason to bring it in on Mega Alakazam unless you suspect I don't have Shadow Ball, unless it's a Scarf Victini. So I thought it was Scarf. He catched me with a good Glaciate prediction, but I'm really, really bulky. And it turns out this is like bulky, especially offensive Victini. I'm still scouting for Scarf, and I go into the Melodic here. Melodic really offers me absolutely nothing against this team. Florges is already really low, and it's Victini, Roserade, and Rotom. That Thunder Miss is actually a little bit big in terms of the grand scheme of how this game ends up playing out. Because I go for the Ice Beam predicting the Roserade. But then he's going to go for the Flame Charge, and I decided after seeing Thunder Glaciate that this was definitely weakness policy Victini. So I'm not going to click Scald against this because I don't want to get swept by Flame Charge weakness policy Victini, but I'm actually tanking these Thunders really, really well. So I'm just going to keep recovering and killing this Victini with toxic damage. Excuse me. There's obviously no physical threats, so the Marvel Skill Burn is not helping me at all here, and the leftovers would be much better. And as Roserade comes in and gets a Leech Seed off on me, I can actually just kill this. I'm not sure if he was predicting me to switch or what he was expecting there, but my Melodic offers me absolutely nothing in this game. I already mentioned that. And it's just another Stall War here with the Victini, as we're going to be able to kill this thing with toxic damage eventually. He's going to keep healing through Leech Seed, but again, this Melodic is not offering anything to my team, so there's absolutely no reason to keep it around. I'm just letting it die, essentially. It's just fodder right now. He's just going to continuously Thunder. And eventually we're going to kill the Victini on the next one, the next time I recover, because he's not going to get enough back from Leech Seed to recover through the toxic damage. And I can't remember what else happens. What happens next? Okay, so the Rotom comes in. Alright, so he put himself in a really bad position by going for all of that, and his Victini essentially dying for nothing. This is his only way to kill the Melodic now. So what started out as a situation where I was like, alright, well, Melodic's useless, is now in a position where Rotom is the only thing he can kill it with, and I have 2 Electric Immunities on my team. So what I'm going to do is go into the Garchomp, because I feel more safe sacking Garchomp and like going into Zero Aura against the Florges on like a Blizzard or something like that. So I'm going to go into the Garchomp here. I can comfortably take the damage, and then he Thunderbolts. So he's definitely Scarf Rotom because he wasn't Scarf Victini or Scarf Roserade, and I'm just going to go for the Fire Blast to try and hit the Rotom, and then I'm going to pick off the Florges, which we know is Life Orb. And now Rotom comes in. It's going to have to go for Blizzard because it can't go for Thunderbolt. So I'm going to go to my Mimikyu to just clean up the game here. With hazard damage, I was a little bit suspicious of how well Melodic could take it and how well Kecleon could take it, but we'll just Z-move with the Mimikyu to finish off the game here. So GG's to West. This was a pretty well-played game on both of our parts, but I had control of a lot of this game, like a lot of this game, and it ended up being one of two 6-0s for me this season. Not the result I expected, but he gave up his Celesteela really early, and he didn't have a heal ball in the Florges, which really fucked over his Victini and his Palisand. Both of those just got demolished by me just clicking recover, essentially, with Kecleon Melodic, and he just couldn't beat either of them. I'm not sure if he had Toxic on anything, but some sort of way to break those walls would have been super duper helpful. So then, Brian ended up losing to Derp. So Derp made it through the next round. Nasiliga beat Hat, and Obi beat Andy. So, because I was first seed, I got to play the next lowest seed, which ended up being Obi, who, again, I had cheesed. He has Mega Mawile on his team, and I brought a cheesy Mimikyu once again, with Destiny Bond, Will-O-Wisp. But yeah, those were the main things, were like Destiny Bond, Will-O-Wisp, so I was going to try and do that. And then I think I had like a skill swap Toxic Spikes U-turn Venomoth to try and skill swap away Huge Power and get up T-Spikes against this team because it really wore it down. He didn't really change much in his rematch here. He's also got Ash Greninja and Zapdos. It's a really good team. He brought Incineroar against me the first time. I literally didn't change my team, by the way. Like, I actually just came in with the exact same team that I brought the first time, except I switched up the Zeraora a little bit. I believe I put Z. I changed up the Mimikyu set entirely, and I made it a Z move user this time, and I changed my Zeraora from Fightinium Z to Fist Plate for close combat damage against the Piloswine. But he swapped out Incineroar for Goodra, which makes it a little bit more of a problem for my Venomoth, which I also changed to a Sweeper set. So I just went with a very offensive build this time instead of a more cheesy defensive build. I'm an Assault Vest Kecleon as well, by the way. I think I swapped something up for that, and I'm like a Spadef Lurantis with boosting move, like Superpower Synthesis knockoff Leaf Blade or something. And I can't remember what the Garchomp is. I know it's got rocks. I think it's Yachi Berry, but there were a few things I was worried about, and Piloswine was not one of them initially. Wow, my music is just like, it's loading. YouTube, you want to like work, bud? Okay, that's fine. I can talk without the music. It's just gonna sound really weird, and hopefully it'll move on to the next song eventually. I don't think it's going to. Anyways, yeah. So I didn't want to cheese this time. I want to take a more offensive approach because Obi had seen my cheese already. So there's no point in bringing cheese twice. It's not going to work again. I figured he would probably be like something like sub Mega Mawile or something to get away from the Will-O-Wisp at the very least of the Mimikyu, and then maybe just set up all over the Mimikyu and hope that he can play around Destiny Bond, something like that. I can't remember what I lead. I think I just lead with Venomoth. Yeah, I lead with Venomoth here against the Piloswine, and I figure, wow, I can just like Sleep Powder something right off the bat because there's no way in hell Breloom's coming in against me. I'm actually Safety Goggles Venomoth too, so the Spore will do nothing, and I can kind of just boost on whatever. So I am just gonna Sleep Powder. I hit it against the Zapdos, surprising because I'm Tinted Lens, and then I'm just gonna sit up all over the Piloswine. And unluckily for me, I'm gonna forget that Ice Shard exists because I should roost after this Earthquake. But instead, what I'm going to do, or just attack, but instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to quiver up again, and then I just essentially lose my Venomoth for absolutely nothing. I got super greedy for no reason, and I'm going to go into my Kecleon, which is going to click Power Up Punch. I don't remember why I have Power Up Punch, but the attack raise against the Intimidate Mega Mawile is super helpful, and he's going to set up a sub, which I expected, on my Fire Punch. So this is going to end up being something that is relatively beneficial in my Kecleon. Granted, I am slower than the Mega Mawile, and I can break the sub at the very least, though, which is super positive. Uh, and then he's going to try and attack me as I'm going to be able to pick off the Mega Mawile, Fire Punch into Shadow Sneak here. I was really hoping he wasn't going to Sucker, but I wasn't sure if he had room for it with Thunder Punch on the set. Obviously, for the Melodic on my team, he had Thunder Punch there, but I don't think he had room with Sub Thunder Punch. He must have had Play Rough. There's no reason for him not to have Play Rough. And then, I don't know, SD or something. He probably didn't have room for Sucker Punch on the set. And my team doesn't really you don't really need to bring Sucker Punch against it. Okay, I'm just going to reload this song here. See if that fixes it. I think we listened to this one already, though, so we're going to skip to the next one. Okay, anyways, I don't know why the music wasn't working there. Sorry about that. The Gudra's going to click Fire Blast. I am fully like specially defensive Assault Vest, so we're going to chew through that, and we're going to get some health back with Drain Punch. The GUI isn't really mattering here, but we're getting enough back from Drain Punch that Fire Blast is not going to do anything. He misses a Draco, unluckily for him, and I get a higher roll on the Drain Punch, so we're getting a lot of HP back, and then he's going to hit a Draco, which obviously would have killed me the last time, and then we're going to be able to kill him with a crit. So that actually, the Draco miss in the end actually really, really mattered. His Gudra is dead, and Kecleon just punished him really, really hard. I don't want to be in a position where I can get spored by the Breloom, though. So I'm going to go to my Lurantis, and it turns out he's toxic. So he was a toxic heal Breloom that was really annoying to deal with last time, but my Lurantis could actually 1v1 it because I just super powered through his sub. He was like a sub-seed. He was sub-seed Breloom, and it was super annoying with like sub-seed Spore, Drain Punch or something, or Bullet Seed. I don't remember exactly what the last move was the first time, but my Lurantis 1v1'd it, and he brought a set that could beat my Lurantis this time. So really well played on Obi's part in terms of the building. Lurantis is essentially useless, and I go into the Garchomp predicting the Zapdos, essentially, because a sleeping Zapdos would give me a turn to set up my rocks, and that's what I'm going to go for here. Just going to get up the rocks, and then go back to my Lurantis on the Piloswine here as he actually goes to the Icicle Crash. Did way more than I expected, and that kind of just showed me that it's offensive Piloswine. So this is a key moment in terms of me bringing my Mimikyu. So what I needed were rocks up to chip the Zapdos in range of my Mimikyu. Greninja doesn't have to be in range, but I basically just have to kind of have Disguise intact or enough health to live a hit from the Greninja, which is not an Ash form yet, by the way. I'm outspeeding the Breloom, and +2 Play Rough should kill that. So all I need is some chip on the Piloswine, and then Mimikyu can win this game for me, or at least kill the Greninja, or put the Greninja in a position where Zero Aura is going to kill that. Alternatively, I just need a little bit of chip on the Piloswine for bulk up Zero Aura to win the game as well. So those are my win conditions that I'm playing towards right now, and I figured I would use the Mimikyu instead of the Zero Aura to break, because then I can somewhat threaten out the Piloswine. So I'm going to go for the +2, I'm going to go for the Sword Stance here as he breaks my Disguise. No biggie. I figure Drain Punch is actually Play Rough is actually a really good play here, because afterwards, the Earthquake damage, I can take the Drain Punch, and I'll get enough HP back to live a Hydro Pump from Greninja. So that's not going to be the case, because he's going to sack the Zapdos to the Play Rough, in quotations, and I'm just going to Z the Zapdos to death. It's not Shadow Sneak, it's Shadow Claw. So the Greninja is going to be able to come in here and pick me off here with the Hydro Pump and get its transformation. But that was pretty much more than enough. You know, I chipped the Piloswine into range of the Zero Aura, and the Zapdos is dead. So Zero Aura at +1 is definitely sitting in a comfortable position right now. I would have preferred to have Mimikyu around for the Breloom. So Obi played around this really well, actually, but I am going to be able to go into my Kecleon here. I can comfortably live a Specs Hydro Pump is a roll, but it turns out he's actually Scarf Greninja, which is, I believe, what he brought in the first match. And I'm going to heal a little bit against this Breloom, as he's going to want to go for the Toxic against me on the next turn, and I can just sort of Fire Punch this Breloom to death. Unfortunately for him, he misses the Toxic. I'm not really sure that one actually mattered. In fact, I'm almost certain that one did not matter. And now he's going to get a Toxic off as his Breloom finally dies to my Fire Punch. So now he's going to bring in the Greninja, and I am a Fire type, so I cannot take that. I could have gone for like Shadow Sneak or something, but there's really no point. Garchomp is not really doing anything for me. You know, I'm not really living the Hydro Pump. It turns out I actually did live the Hydro Pump. I still thought he was Specs at this point rather than Scarfed, and I just knew that I needed to keep Kecleon around because it could still tank a hit from this at the HP that it was at. But now we know it's Scarf Greninja based on the damage, and I'm confident that my Zero Aura can live the hit from Scarf Greninja. But with Yache Berry, I'm still, like, the Piloswine is still going to be able to pick me off. So I'm just going to sack the Garchomp. I was kind of hoping that he would miss a Hydro, but he's hit a bunch. That kind of makes up for the Toxic miss and the Draco miss. The fact that he's hitting these Hydro Pumps, kind of. It's not really equivalent, but there you go. I'm going to Drain Punch on the Piloswine. I get a little bit of a low roll there, and that means that he's going to be able to get Ice Shard damage off. Pretty irrelevant Shadow Sneak from me, but I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't a Fire type against this Greninja. And because he's Scarfed, it actually turns out I lived this hit. I wasn't entirely sure about the roll, because I wasn't sure if he was Modest or Timid Scarfed, I believe. But somewhat of a choke on my part because I could have just Drain Punched here and won the game right here. But I am just going to choose to Shadow Sneak instead. I'll get a tiny bit of chip off, which is completely irrelevant, and we live the Hydro Pump and die to Toxic. So not much you can do there. And then here, I'm just going to be able to win the game with Zero Aura Plasma Fists. Had he crit me, he would have won and made finals, but he did not, and so I won and I made finals. And so GG to Obi, first member of House down. This is a House-dominated league, and for those of you who don't know House runs draft format, consists of a bunch of friends of mine that are, it's sort of a cult, really. It's kind of a cult, and a lot of House members have won UTL, and I came in talking mad shit in the draft, saying that I was coming in, I was the designated House killer, and I was being brought in to kill House and end House's reign. And then when playoffs started, I was talking more mad shit about how I'm going to beat House. And so picking up a win against Obi was definitely helpful in that case. And luckily for me, Derp and Nasiliga are both members of House as well, and they faced off against each other in the semis on the other side, and Nasiliga won, which was not really ideal. He kind of hacks Derp out, but it was not really ideal because it was actually the only match I really felt like I didn't have a good win condition against in week 1. I did not fare well against Tapu Lele, and it was very scary. However, Derp was a new team, and he comes up with some wild stuff, so I was definitely happier in that sense that I had already seen what Nasiliga's sets would have been from last time, and so it was kind of on equal playing field, rather than I think Derp would have had an advantage because he had Mew on his team, which is much more unpredictable than stuff that Nasiliga could throw at me. So we take on Nasiliga in the finals today. This was today. Now, he brought the exact same 6 Pokemon that he brought last time. Last time I remembered he had an Assault Vest Raikou to take on my Mega Alakazam. His Gliscor, I can't remember what it was. His Chestnut was Fizdef. His Lele was Scarfed. I remember that for sure. I can't remember what his Heatran was. I want to say it was Spidef, but I can't be entirely sure. And I cannot remember what his Gyarados was. But I changed up a little bit of stuff here. So I actually swapped something out for Mimikyu. Can't remember what it was now. Espeon, I think. I had like Assault Vest Espeon last time and Combine Zero Aura. And I swapped Combine Zero Aura to being the Assault Vest variant instead. And I took out Espeon and I put Mimikyu in. So I'm like a Scarf Passimian. I switched a little bit about the Garchomp setup, I think. I think it was Z-move Garchomp the first time. And I swapped that out for Yachi Berry in case of Ice Fang Gliscor, so I could 1v1 it. Or Ice Fang Garchomp or something, or Hidden Power Ice Raikou. So I'm Yachi Berry now instead with Rocks, SD, Dual Stab. Melodic, I moved some EVs around a little bit so that I'm a little bit specially defensive, a little bit more physically defensive to take on the Gyarados. I'm Leftovers because Marvel skills are relevant against Mold Breaker Gyarados. And I moved some EVs around on my Mega Alakazam. I moved some from special attack to HP, so I was a little bit bulkier of a Mega Alakazam. The special attack investment really didn't matter that much. I was still two-shotting a lot of stuff with the special attack investment that I had. I'm like sub-recover Psychic Focus Blast. So it can't really hit the Lele very well, but Resistant Psychic and Psychic Terrain from Mega Alakazam still does a lot of damage, and if he's Specs, then I get the hit off first, which is really solid. Especially if I'm behind a sub. So I am SD... I'm actually Z-Splash Mimikyu, with Sneak, Shadow Claw, and Play Rough. And I figured Z-Splash is really effective here at either cleaning or breaking. I really wanted a good cleaner, because I figured I could clean up late game, but I need Psychic Terrain Lele out of the way, or very weakened, and essentially what that means is getting at my rocks as soon as I possibly can. I believe I'm just going to lead my Mega Alakazam, actually, because last time he led Chestnut, and I kind of figured he would want to do the same sort of thing. I didn't bring any removal, so he can kind of get greedy and set up layers of spikes on me. So I'm going to lead the Zam, which basically means I get a free sub again against this thing. I'm going to be able to trace pressure and put myself in an interesting position against the Raikou. Clicking Psychic and seeing that it is Assault Vest once again as he goes for the Shadow Ball to break my sub. Luckily for him, not Thunderbolt because Zero Aura is immune, but I'm going to go into my Zero Aura right away. because it is Assault Vest, and I can take on this Raikou really easily, as that only does 17%. Pretty free knockoff for me. I get rid of an item here on the Zero Aura, or the Chestnut, I mean. I'm not doing any sorts of damage to this Chestnut, so I decided to go into my Garchomp on a Spike. It really didn't matter. I could have gone for Bounce or something, but in that case, he gets up a Spike and then dies, or switches into Gliscor or Heatran or something. So I'm not even running Bounce. I've got Grass Knot in the slot that I would want Bounce because he's got a Gastrodon on his team. But this means I can get up a layer of rocks. He's going to go for the Leech Seed, which I thought was a little bit greedy. Although Spikes would have been more greedy. And he's going to get up a layer of Spikes now as I click SD. If I get to +4, Outrage is actually a roll to kill this thing, even if it's Fizz Death. And I'm going to be able to get to +4 as I get severely weakened by the combo of Seed Bomb plus 3 turns of Leech Seed. But this is now in a range where I can Outrage it. He can't risk going Lele on whatever cover. He hasn't seen my last two moves, right? So he can't risk going Lele, but now he can comfortably go Lele. That's fine. Garchomp has done its job. It got up rocks, and it took something down with it, which was the Chestnut, which was also huge, by the way, because this opens up Passimian a little bit more. The Gliscor is still a problem. The Lele is still a problem. It opens up the Mimikyu a little bit more. It doesn't give me as many opportunities to get in my Mega Alakazam as I would like, but that's okay. He's only got 2 layers of spikes up right now, which is not the worst kinds of damage. Alakazam is one of the only things that can tank the Psychic from the Lele here, and I'm decided to go into Mega Alakazam and just click Recover. Scout out and see if he wanted to click Psychic against me again, but he's just going to go into Heatran and his leftovers Heatran. So I'm going to go for a raw Focus Blast here, and we miss, which really sucks as he gets up his rocks. I knew he was going to go for rocks. There's no reason he wasn't going to go for rocks. Focus Blast is a roll to 2-shot this if it's Spadef. Depending on leftovers recovery and depending on the Spadef investment, we're going to hit, and you see that's a 64%. This is still Spadef Tran. So had I hit the first Focus Blast, this thing would have just died. My Mega Alakazam would have been really healthy, but now he's going to get a Protect off, and I'm still fooling around with clicking Focus Blast, which I do not want to do. So I'm going to go to my Passimian, as he's actually going to make another play and go into his Gyarados, trying to resist the Focus Blast here, which is going to give me an attack raise on Passimian. This is a big turn for me as well, as he's going to go into his Gliscor. There were a couple things I could have done here. I could have clicked Close Combat, which would have just killed a Gyarados Mega Evolving, but you don't have to Mega Evolve first turn, so he could have done a number of things. And so I ended up deciding to go for a U-turn. Knockoff, in hindsight, was very safe. He has a Scarf Lele that is always going to outspeed my Scarf Passimian. Excuse me, and his Gyarados is probably EV'd to outspeed me after a Dragon Dance. So what I should have done was go for Knockoff, because I really want to get rid of this Toxic Orb on this thing, and Knockoff is extremely free if he wants to bring back in the Heatran or in the Raikou. And it's still chip damage against the Gyarados that cannot heal unless it's like a Rest Talk set, which I was not really expecting against my team. I figured Dragon Dance was a little bit better. Lets him beat the Mega Alakazam a little bit more reliably. Or at least beat the Zero Aura. It can't really be Rest Talk Dragon Dance against my team. So, I don't go for Knockoff, I go for U-turn. I cannot punish this Gliscor as hard as I would like, but I find out good information. Based on the damage, I find out that this is actually entirely physically defensive, completely physically defensive, and I can get my Melodic in, pivot it in, and go for a Toxic on the really obvious Raikou/Gyarados switch. I'm going to miss. That kind of sucks. I've missed a Focus Blast and a Toxic at this point. Nisiliga ended up having Dirt miss a bunch of 90% accurate moves like Zen Headbutt against him in their semis match, and I thought that the luck was just kind of rubbing off, and I've had really unlucky games against Nisiliga in the past. So I wasn't entirely sure what to expect with a Focus Blast miss and a Toxic miss. I kind of just really felt bad about myself for missing that Toxic. It means I can go to my Zero Aura, but Zero Aura was something that could tank a hit from Lele after hazards. So pretty much sucks in that capacity. But I'm going to be able to go for a knockoff here. Obviously, my Zero Aura is taking a ton of chip, but I can knock off the Raikou here. And then depending on what he wants to go in, I have a couple plays. Lele was the worst case scenario. If he would have gone Heatran, to like click Protect to Scout if I was Scarfed or something, which was a set that I was considering, by the way, until I saw the Gliscor on his team, because I couldn't remember, it was so long ago. But when I was building in my head ahead of time, I was like, oh, Scarf Zero Aura is perfect. I can outspeed the Gyarados after Dragon Dance. Perfect. I can outspeed Scarf Lele. Not so much. Not so much with the Gliscor round. But I have to sack something to the Lele. This is pretty much my only like way to do it, as he goes for the Moonblast there. Mimikyu can tank one here. This is kind of what I thought was my opportunity to get my Mimikyu in. He's locked into Moonblast. I can just go for a raw Shadow Claw. I don't really have another play besides that. In hindsight, it turns out this is actually the wrong play. I was just worried about Intimidate Cycle with Gyarados, but Intimidate Cycling with Gyarados required him to take Rock's Chip over and over and over and over and over again, and so I should have clicked Z-Splash here, but what I'm going to do is just click Shadow Claw, and we're going to catch the Heatran on the switch on Rocks, and I don't judge the damage very well at all. I thought it did about 30%, but it did 23, and I'm just going to continuously Shadow Claw. Another turn where I could have Z-Splash was the turn he clicked Protect, and I'm not going to get a roll that would have killed, and he's going to be able to break my disguise, which now means I die to the Lele hit in terrain. But we pick up the Heatran. So, again, that's definitely a misplay on my part. I should have Z-Splashed on the Lele switch into the Heatran. Then I could have killed the Heatran the following turn with no repercussions. If he goes Gyarados, he then has to take hazards on a bunch of different Pokemon. And at +3 with the chip damage on this Gliscor, I can definitely kill it with a Shadow Claw crit. A Play Rough is a roll to kill. Shadow Claw is not a roll to kill. But now that that's out of the way, that's what I can deal with. Potentially, I could have stalled out something to do with Lele. My Disguise would still be up. The issue being is that Gyarados Moldbreaker still goes through Disguise. There's things to play around there, but I could have been +2 after the Gyarados came in, and I would have been faster, and I would have been able to kill this. So I think Z-Splashing was actually a gigantic misplay on my part, or not Z-Splashing was a gigantic misplay on my part, because Gyarados only could have come in 3 more times. So he's going to bring it in. I'm going to get an attack drop, which is actually really lucky for me, but then I'm not going to be so lucky as he just crunches through me. The min roll was my amount of HP, so there's no way in hell I was living that. I thought the game was over right now, because essentially I've just thrown away my win conditions. Everything dies to Lele at this point, and there's really no way for me to pull that back, because my Passimian and my Mega Alakazam are weakened enough that they just die to Lele after hazards. And Passimian's not faster than the Lele anyways. But Melodic is kind of my saving grace here. So what I'm going to do is just Dragon Tail here. He makes a really ballsy play and goes for the Dragon Dance instead of just attacking me, which brings in his Gliscor, luckily. If it was Lele, then I definitely lost there, but the Gliscor is fine. You know, despite him getting rid of my leftovers, it means I can recover up, and I get a fat chunk of damage on the Gliscor, or whatever wants to come in. I started calcing the Lele around this point, and I can actually live a Psychic from the Lele, depending on how it goes. He makes a good play and goes into the Gyarados on my recover, and gets a big chunk of damage off, as I'm going to be able to take out the Gyarados, and then bring in the Lele. So from this range of HP, I can take 1 Psychic, which means I'm just going to have to recover stall out Psychic terrain, where at which point I can take 2 Psychics from 63%, and hope that he doesn't crit me or Spadef drop me. Get up to a reasonable amount of HP to be able to deal with this Lele. He's getting some higher rolls mixed with some lower rolls. You can see 54 to 45. He got a high roll and a low roll in a row, which leaves me in a much healthier amount of HP. But once Psychic Terrain is down, he's kind of screwed. And so he has to go into Gliscor here to reset terrain. Otherwise, I can just 1v1 the Lele. And he's going to go for the Ice Fang to try and freeze me, which does not happen, and I'm able to pick off the Gliscor. So now it's just 5 turns of terrain that I have to stall out with the Lele here. It's taken a ton of Rock's Chip by coming in over and over and over again. I have to hope that I'm not going to get crit or Spadef dropped, but luckily I have a Sack and the Passimian in the back. I actually can't go Mega Alakazam unless... There's the crit, right? And the crit didn't bother me because I was at a healthy enough amount of HP to live through, but then he gets the Spadef drop the next turn. So luckily at this point there's only 1 turn for me to do, and I can either go Passimian or Mega Alakazam. I decided to go Passimian because it wasn't doing anything as the Lele anyways. It's already slower. There's no point in me keeping Passimian around. And then I realized, wow, Melodic is my only way to win this game at this point still. Luckily, I can live a hit through the hazards after Psychic Terrain is down, otherwise I would have been screwed. But Mega Alakazam tracing Psychic Surge sets it up again, so that's not really ideal when I don't outspeed the Scarf Tapu Lele here. yeah, so I'm gonna just like recover my way into a nice amount of HP where I can take 2 psychics. I need to be at a comfortable position where I'm not gonna get crit twice, and then I can go for Scald and just judge the damage. And it does more than I expected actually, so I'm going to click recover just to be safe here and know that I won't be able to get crit and killed through the Scald on the last turn here. And so we are going to pick up the win against Nasilga. We're going to take down House in a not such a comfortable fashion. This was actually a really nerve-wracking game, but we pick up another title. So this is actually our 4th legitimate title, and I did self-claim one of them, the Little Cup title that I have, but that's only because the league was completely dying and I was the only one active and I had made semifinals already. But that's besides the point. We have 4 legitimate titles. They are all on the channel, and that is the reason that I'm recording this. This was also my last Gen 7 league, so keep an eye out for my Gen 7 recap coming in the future. Let's just touch on the team a little bit before I let go here. Mimikyu is still my top kill leader. It's now hit 110 direct kills in 68 games played, which is nuts. And I have 3 titles with Mimikyu, 100% my comfort pick. It's just, yeah, Mimikyu's a GOAT. Garchomp moved up to 5th place in the kill leaderboards, moving past Magearna in the season, and picked up its first title. Mega Alakazam picked up its first title with me. I've only drafted it 3 times, but it's come to over 10 games a season in each of those seasons, and has 38 kills. It's in, well, that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's just on the borderline of top 10 in terms of kills. Melodic picked up a lot of work in playoffs. Wasn't super great in the regular season for me. Zeraora, this is my first time using Zeraora. Very pleased with it. Kill the game. It was extremely diverse, and it put on a lot of pressure against people. I was very, very happy with Zeraora. Venomoth was a standout star, honestly. It actually 6-0'd Clasped in one of the games this season, and that's where it got pretty much all the kills that it had, but it had some funky uses. Cheesing Obi was pretty remarkable with it. Espeon and Kecleon. Espeon was okay. I picked it up more as like a middling base speed threat rather than another psychic type with Mega Alakazam, and as such, because it was a secondary psychic type on the team, it didn't come as often as it probably should have. And then Kecleon was a really, honestly, a steal in Tier 5. Complete and utter steal in Tier 5. Loved Kecleon. It put in so much work in playoffs for me as well as Melodic defensively. Passimian, it came to like 2 games, and I think they were both against Nasilga. Maybe it came to another one, but it didn't really do all that much for me this season. Skarmory came to like 4 games or something. It barely did anything. Set up hazards a couple times. Not a fan of Skarmory, like I mentioned. Lurantis only came twice against Obi in the regular season and in playoffs. Wasn't super fantastic, but it did what it needed to in that game at least. And then down at the bottom here we have Houndoom, which came to 3 games but didn't do anything on the field. I brought it for a Mega Latias against Hat. I specifically remember that one, and besides that, I can't remember what Houndoom did for me this season. But we picked up another title. I'm super happy about that. Again, Gen 7 recap coming soon, TM. Now that I'm finished Gen 7 draft, I have a little bit more time to film that. I'm not in any leagues anymore until Hive starts up again in January. I know I mentioned that I might not be recording anymore after the end of the NCL recap, but I'm thinking I'll probably record the Hive season, and obviously I have the Gen 7 draft recap, or not draft recap, but Gen 7 recap, like all of my seasons ever recap to talk about in the coming weeks here. So hopefully you guys enjoy, and hopefully you guys stick around for the Gen 7 recap. That's gonna be it for me. Have a great one.